Hello everyone, welcome to SIG Autoscaling for Monday the 24th of July 2023. We have a fair few items around on the agenda. Suraj?
Just waiting for approval. I think I need approval from a core maintainer on this. I've already gotten approval from the maintainer of this specific component, which is external gRPC cloud provider. And yep, I'm waiting for that approval and merge. And the second item is a reminder for you, right? Which is adding more reviewers to our SIG.
Yeah. I guess on that, I am in the process of raising a PR to do some cleanup. I think we're sort of starting to surface where we have all the existing assumptions. I have found someone who is interested in being an extra maintainer for the AWS cloud provider. In terms of the core stuff, I think I think it's best that I'll stick an item onto the agenda for next week, or potentially actually the week after, because I don't think Marston's around next week either. Around whether we can start moving towards like splitting out the repos potentially, to make it a bit easier to onboard, because I think part of the problem we've got is the complexity of having all four sub-projects in a single repo. A, makes permission model a bit harder, B, then makes onboarding and people coming along to the repos and having a look and going, like, where do things live, etc., a bit harder. Cool. I will add that to the agenda now, whilst I remember.
Thanks for that, Vic.
Cool. Next up, Benjamin looking for a review. I don't know if Benjamin's here today. I'm not sure what the latest status of this is. Okay, it still needs a rebase. I will stick a comment on that PR and see if we can get rebased before someone takes a look at it again. Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, I think this is here because, like, as a follow-up from last week, I saw that Joachim commented on it. So I guess I'll like leave an answer and we'll take it from the PR. Or is there anything we should be directly talking about here, Joachim?
No, I think it is left because we were to follow up, but we did that on the PR.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, next point is also has also my name attached to it, but I think it's also a follow-up from last week. There was this discussion around, should we, like, for all people trying to apply VPA to something that is not managed by a controller, or is like a CRD that doesn't properly implement the scale sub-resource with this status selector property, can we give them an alternative way to use VPA on it? And I saw that this discussion is like as old as the switch from label selector to scale sub-resource. I think a few years back, Beata suggested to like have some kind of meta controller in the VPA project, but this never really took off, did it? Like, did someone really pick this up and try to do it?
I don't think like anyone tried to actually do that. But like I wrote, the reason for switch away from label selectors was because we saw people getting themselves in trouble by writing wrong selectors. Most notably, someone like selected all the pods in the cluster, and it didn't work very well. So we want to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, also, I guess there is no easy check to find out if multiple VPAs match a single pod, right?
That's another reason that we don't like. We don't want that to have that problem, and that's why we in VPA we only allow pointing to the topmost controller that that VPA can support.
Okay, so
just to add on this, Marco, we're having tons of problem with pod description budget because they are dealing with selectors and not topmost selection like VPA. So I already dealing with the two. I really appreciate the way VPA does things. If we can stick to it.
Yeah, I guess that's perfectly fine, right? I'm just trying to find out how to have future conversations around the exact same topic, because like, I mean, it's 2023 and like the first discussion around this is from 2020. So like this keeps coming up. Yeah. And I'm just like trying to find out what is it that we should tell people. Like, it's like this, we're using scale sub-resource. There are these reasons for it. And there is one easy way to get VPA for your custom resource, and that is implement the scale sub-resource and this one property, and then you're good. And otherwise, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is what we're telling people. Then I guess that's also okay. But,
I think there's a similar problem with PDB also, pod disruption budget. They have the exact similar problem, and they explicitly say we only support pods which are scale sub-resource in the documentation.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks. Oh yeah, maybe like as a follow-up, should we like make this more explicit in the VPA FAQ or something? Like add an item, hey, I got this custom resource and I want VPA, so like what do I do? All right, I'll try to write something.
That sounds great.
Agreed. Awesome. Next item is one from me. So yeah, we have, well, you can see I've finally managed to log in with the SIG Autoscaling account again. We have got myself and Marcin have proper access to the account again. So as part of that, I'm planning to switch the meeting ID over to a new one from next week onwards. I will update the SIG doc as well as the Slack channel, but it'll also have a password on it going forward. It's a standard password that's shared across all Kubernetes. Zoom meetings is just 5 seconds. Nice and easy to remember. I will see if I can also get the Google Calendar invite updated. That might require Marcin, so that might be a bit of back and forth. So that might be a couple of weeks to get that done. Yeah. Next item, Chen, I think I saw you were on that, and Haran, you're both on the call. Splitting the PR of the MPA.
Yeah. So basically, my question is, we have the MPA pull request, but actually it is way larger than what's actually should be put in one single PR, like 500 lines of code. But looking at the MPA code, I feel like it's hard for me to have like a 500 line of PR, because like for example, there are 3 controllers. For each controller, like a admission controller, it itself is like more than 500 lines. Like is there like a recommended way to split the whole code base into a series of small PRs so that it will be easier for review?
Yeah, and Marcin is probably not here. So your team do have some experience on that. So what's the rule of splitting it? Because 500 lines seem too small, and we would end up a lot. And for the MPA, because it's a new framework, so it also includes a lot of stuff. And so what our initial thought is, we have the APIs definition, PR first, and then we go ahead with each controller. For each controller, we split it in a way that logically makes sense. So what do you think?
So I don't know if I will have capacity to do the review. So I don't want to like talk too much, but I would go for some split that makes sense to you. Like I like doing a. I don't know. Sorry. Oh yeah, what Elmiko is saying, like separating vendor files, to make sense. It will cut up the review.
Yeah, I'm generally of the view that, like, I think inevitably this is going to be a big PR. I think splitting by commits and just reviewing commit by commit is probably the best. So yeah, if we split the vendor out, split the docs, I would say, and the code implementation, and then the vendoring, that sort of feels like the neatest way. I'm not sure from a quick glance whether there's any way to easily split the implementation code as well into multiple commits. I'm not seeing anything obvious, to be honest.
So you're suggesting it's not just splitting the PR, so we still keep the PR, but splitting the commit into different. Okay.
Yeah, it feels like one of those ones where, as you said, this is inevitably going to be a big pile of a lot of code. It still makes sense to me to logically group it as a single PR of, like, this is the first implementation of it. But the commits, like, we don't squash commits on merge, so those commits being broken down will still be preserved in the Git history if people want to look back at it afterwards. Also obviously in PR, but will still be logically grouped as a single PR, which feels like the right level of splitting to me. I don't really see much extra benefit in sort of splitting the docs and the implementation into separate PRs. Others might disagree, but
I tend to agree with what Guy is saying here. I think, like, in terms of getting it reviewed like the most efficiently, if we break out the commits into, like you said, the vendor and maybe the docs into a commit and then the core functionality into a commit, when we go to review it, then we can just look at the core functionality commit, and it makes it a little bit easier to ingest the changes. Obviously Chen and Haran, if you feel there are other logical places that the commits could be split to make it easier for someone who's just looking at it to review, that would be helpful too. But I think just getting the vendor files out, because that PR is like 4,000 file change or something like that. So it's really tough just to manipulate on its own. That would be my recommendation, is start with the vendor files.
Thank you so much, Elmiko. Yeah, yes. I think we should definitely do that, and then even further split the core functionality into several controllers as well. And we will work offline for that and respond to the comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I still think it may be beneficial to first have the skeleton itself as a PR, like where you have the API and maybe like the basic working skeleton with all the test setup and all the code stuff, like as a first PR. And then the second one can come in with like the actual controller implementations and stuff. Yeah. Because like right now, this is a huge pile of things. And I've seen in other PRs, we've seen discussions around discussing how the test is being set up and where all the files for the tests belong, and like, should those certificates be generated in this place or should they belong over there, and so on. And this is the conversation you can have perfectly fine in like on this first PR, right? Even without looking at core functionality, at how stuff is implemented. So I think it still makes sense to split it up in at least those two parts. But maybe this is just me as a reviewer, but I mean, people review things in different ways. You know? This is basically just how I look at stuff. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Marco. Yes. Yes, we will definitely work toward that. Thank you.
That was everything we had on the agenda. Is there anything else others want to say? I shall take silence as no. In that case, we do have the catch up with Carpenter, the Carpenter team, and they're planning to walk through their the proposed V1 Beta 1 API in about an hour and a half at 4 UTC. Otherwise, see you all next week. Thanks.
Thanks, guy. Later.